Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. This is episode 32. I'm your host, Joe Baress, along with my co-host, Joby Fawcett. Joby, it's Monday afternoon. We're recording this, and how are you doing?
Well, Joe, the sun has now emerged from what was a very cloudy morning, and it kind of gives me the idea that we're moving into the spring sports season.
That's true.
That's the kind of feel I get looking out the window as I'm collecting and writing preseason preview stories for high school track and field and boys volleyball. And, we're just kind of getting ourselves ready for the next season. But we are going to do a wonderful recap of what was a terrific winter sports season.
Absolutely, Joby, and spring sports season is pretty much a sprint, but no pun intended with track and field.
And Joe, luckily, I was very good at the sprints when I was in.
You sure were. You sure were. Absolutely.
Lucky for the Times-Tribune.
Absolutely. So right now, as you did mention, we're going to recap the winter sports season, and we will start that by talking to our athlete of the week, Holy Cross boys basketball player Michael Hughes. Hey, Michael, how we doing, man?
I'm doing good. No,
absolutely.
Don't ask for a better day.
Absolutely. So what Michael did is he scored a team high 15 points in the Crusaders' loss to District 12 champion West Catholic. Unfortunately, had a 3-pointer at the buzzer in the PIAA Class 3A semifinals. Hughes ended up making a key steal late with the score tied, and then hit 2 free throws with 6 seconds left to give Holy Cross a 2-point lead late. Michael, sorry to recap that for you, but honestly, the team played great. I mean, Joby was there, but, watching from afar, knowing how good West Catholic is, you guys played great that whole game. Tell me about the team's performance in that game. What did you think of the team's performance?
I think we played really hard. I couldn't have asked any more from our coaches or any of the players that game. West Catholic is very good, athletic, and very strong on defense, very quick, and we dealt with their pressure and we were able to, maintain a good lead, or for most of the game we led, and, there's just, they made a little bit of a run at the end to cut the lead to only 1 or 2 and a tie it eventually, and it was just heartbreaking, losing the way that we did, but I couldn't have asked for better coaches and teammates to play with.
So, Michael, I want to first of all congratulate you on what's been a spectacular career. I'll dive into that a little later on. But first and foremost, I also want to commend you and your teammate, Matt Lyons, because emotionally it's not easy to have to come out after a game like that and talk with somebody like me or anybody from the media for that matter. And I thought you both handled it very maturely. Looking at the game itself, you knew the challenge of taking on this team that beat Riverside in the quarterfinals. So you knew what they were bringing to the table. You mentioned the intensity you and your teammates played with. How much did your experience having reached the 2A final last year play into the way you played in terms of being confident against a very quality opponent?
The experience that we had from last year's run definitely played just a big role. Just, making to state chip was a lot of fun, and, we wanted to be able to do that again. But the things we learned just with the intensity, states is, I feel like, much different game than just a normal regular season game. And we knew what we had to do. We know the intensity that we had to bring every day at practice. And I think it really helped us, be able to win and grind out close wins. Because the year before, first 2 rounds wasn't such of a really close games, but this year we really had to just grind out wins.
Michael, you obviously came up big, and your team came up big throughout the year. You came up big late in that semifinal game. What is it like being in a game like this? What are you feeling? How are you able to kind of block out, calm the nerves, hit big free throws? What is it like being in these high pressure situations for you? How are you able to handle it?
It's definitely calming my nerves. Has definitely worked on that a lot just over the years, but I just think I've learned to actually really enjoy those type of moments and embrace them more than, fear them, than fear all the pressure, the big free throws. I think it's just like what, a basketball player or a player from any sport in any big situation would want, because I think it's what could make or break you. So yeah.
So, Michael, listen, this was a tough loss, but this has been a very incredible run for you and your teammates. In the state playoffs, you had a couple of tight games early. You had the overtime win over Troy, which, believe it or not, Troy tied the game on a last-second shot. So you've experienced both sides of that, I guess. But so moving up into Class 3A after reaching the Class 2A final and finding out what the level of play is at the state in the state tournament in the larger classification, what was that like for you and your teammates?
It was just a very fun experience, very exciting. I think guy moved up, maybe some people didn't think we'd be able to make the run that we did last year. I think we definitely were able to run it back to the standard we met last year. Yeah, we didn't make it to Hershey this year, but we were 2 seconds away from that. So I think we just met our standards and did everything we could.
Joe, I want real quick, Mike, just so for you and your teammates, having reached the 2A final last year, I know Coach Calais upgraded your non-league schedule. It included a couple of very tough preseason games, including one against Devon Prep, to kind of show you or simulate to you what that kind of level of play you were going to face later on down the road. And I think, too, you can give a little bit of credit to Riverside for what the Vikings were able to do in terms of challenging you as well throughout the course of the year. So tell me about that, how those games really prepared you and some of your guys who, needed that type of level of competition.
I think those games definitely helped a ton, because those Riverside, Devon Prep, Abe Lincoln, those type of schools just bring a different level of intensity that is just like the intensity you'll see in states. And I think it just really helped prepare us for district states. When our season's on the line, we got to be able to make plays and still execute.
Yeah, Michael, you're a couple days removed now. What was it like playing basketball at Holy Cross with the guys you played with and the coaches? You have a great staff there. What was it like, playing there? How much did you appreciate it?
I just know I'm really going to miss it just as time keeps passing on. I just couldn't have asked it done with a better group every day. It was a pleasure being there at practice, and, or whether it was watching film, doing defensive slides, running sprints with them, I wouldn't have asked to do it with a better group.
So, Michael, listen, I was watching the NCAA tournament last night a little bit, and it was so strange because, Maryland won on a last-second shot over Colorado State. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a walk. But that being said,
we were talking about that before you jumped on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's devastating, right? And so you lost your season in the same manner when Javon Bird hits that improbable 3-pointer. And CBS Sports did a great segment about how devastating that is to lose in that manner. And because so often in the media, the celebration comes to the miracle of that last shot, or the magical moment of that last shot, or the quote unquote one moment in time. But, of course, from my perspective, I had to write it about you guys because you were on the other end of that. For every great performance like that or great shot, there's heartbreak. And I thought Coach Calais said it best after. He was just heartbroken for you guys. So in that moment, and you don't have to tell me everything, but in those moments in the locker room, I know Matt Lyons told me he didn't even want to go back in because there is a finality to it. And this group has had such great success at Holy Cross, going to at least the semifinals 3 straight years. How silent, or, how did you cope with the emotions of that loss?
It was just definitely very emotional after the game. Of course, my parents and teammates really helped me. My friends really helped me just like get over it and, just to move on a little. It's going to obviously sting for a while, and I'm going to be thinking about that for probably the rest of my life, just like what you missed. But, it's just, how do I cope with it? I just gotta move on and know that I can't really change it now. And that I know that I did everything that I personally could, and that my teammates did everything that they could have, and our coaches did everything that they could, and it just didn't roll in our favor.
Exactly, Michael. I'm gonna ask you something about, obviously you're a great basketball player. How did you get started? How did you get started in the sport, and what made you kind of like the sport?
I started playing from a young age. My dad was a good basketball player when he played at Valley View, and he just, I don't know, we always had a hoop in our driveway, and I just, over time, as I was growing up, I just loved it more and more, and loved just shooting out there, and really started to take it more and more serious as I grew older. I just found love in playing it.
So, Michael, and you also come from a very athletic family. You mentioned your dad. I believe your sisters were track athletes at Abington Heights. But interesting weekend for you too, because your dad obviously supporting Valley View, which lost on Friday night to a very good Devon Prep team, which you played against during the preseason. But this Lackawanna League, you as a player and a participant, maybe you don't get caught up into it, but how great has this been the last couple of years for the success of basketball in our area, that so many teams are doing so well, boys and girls, in state playoffs?
I think it's definitely great. Just people from other areas are going to start to, maybe come see more games around in District 2, maybe more colleges, maybe more players start to get more looks. There's going to be a lot of things just that will open up just because, teams around here are making deep runs in states, and that's just great.
Michael, so I was looking at your Athlete of the Week interview, and I like to, kind of pull some things for that. You're apparently just a big time Philadelphia sports fan. It's interesting because it's been quite a whirlwind for you. Tell me about that Eagles Super Bowl victory. I mean, what did you, where'd you watch it, and how awesome was that to see the Eagles just absolutely dismantle the Chiefs?
I watched it in my basement with a lot of my senior friends at Holy Cross on the basketball team. It was just great because every Eagles fan just knows like how painful it was losing to them 2 years prior when they had that penalty called on them, and we know Eagles were going into halftime up 10, I think, and they just didn't close it out. But being able to put a beating on the Chiefs was definitely good and fun to watch for me personally.
Absolutely. Quick follow up to that. I saw that you really admired Jalen Hurts. Full disclosure on my part, I'm a Packers fan, so I really wasn't thrilled with the Eagles. But the one person I really do like on the Eagles has always been Jalen Hurts. Based on, I'll let you say it yourself, but what do you kind of admire about him as an athlete?
I just admire that, he's able to handle like media's criticism on him, and that he just pushes it to the side and just puts his head down and just keeps winning. He dealt with a lot of adversity in college where Tua took his spot at QB, and then he came back in the SEC championship and was able to win them the game, and he showed that type of character there when, playing the Chiefs again, he was able to just silence all the critics and just get a dominant win.
So, Michael, you talk about character, right? When you mentioned Jalen Hurts there. So you are quite a character kid too at Holy Cross for what you've been able to achieve going back to your sophomore year, being part of that team that went to the semifinals and lost to Lancaster Mennonite. And of course, last year's team going to the final. Now that you've had a chance to kind of think about it, the legacy you have carved is outstanding in what has been a great traditional championship program. What's in the future for Michael Hughes now that, that now was the final time you'll wear that uniform?
I'm definitely want to play basketball in college. Not sure yet where I'm going to play. Talked to a variety of schools, and my AU coaches talked to a variety of schools for me. But I'm just going to, let a little bit of time pass and make my decision to make my decision.
Absolutely.
Where I want to go.
Absolutely. Michael, I want to at least ask you this before we let you go. The Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, no.
Also Joby's team, sort of. But what do you think of them? Like, what is going on there? I mean, you got the Embiid situation. You've got massive contract for Paul George. How are you feeling right now at this point as a Sixers fan? The process doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, it's definitely been trying to focus on just other things in the Sixers. It's been very disappointing. Just a lot of very high expectations after signing Paul George, and now there's big three: Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, obviously, and just injuries, load management, so many different things. I'm just not performing. It's just been hard to watch. I'm just happy the Eagles were able to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, I will tell you, Michael, here's the thing. Joe mentions, I've been a Sixers fan since the 80s. So I know when you see me, Michael, you don't think I'm going to be 55 years old, but I am. So I actually saw the Sixers when they won the last championship, and that was a very long time ago. So I'm agonizing a much longer than you are. It's been tough. So I have to ask you, though, because Joe is out of the NCAA tournament pool. I believe he picked Michigan, so they're gone.
They're not gone.
Oh, they're not gone.
And I picked Duke, but you continue.
Or Duke. Michael, who do you have winning the tournament?
I had Wisconsin winning, and they lost by 2 to BYU.
Joby, don't bring that up.
Are you still in the pool at least in your group, your friends group there?
I'm pretty sure I'm out. I mean, also my 3, so including Wisconsin, the other 2 teams I had my Final Four, I had Louisville and Clemson, and they're also out. So,
now, Michael, you are a basketball player, right?
Yeah.
I'm just checking. I don't know. That seems like a very odd Final Four.
He was going for it all. You got to shoot your shot. That's it. You got to shoot your shot.
Michael, much to Joe Baress's dismay, all 4 of my Final Four teams are still alive.
Look at that. Attaboy, Joby. Attaboy.
Well, here's how I can define my success. I've seen, prior to the tournament, 0 full college basketball games. So I was just blindly selecting teams. That seemed to work out much better for me this year.
That's great. Yeah, listen, I don't know if you have anything else, Joby, but I just want to say to Michael, as a Holy Cross alum, you guys were amazing these past few years. And
Joe, did you mention to Michael that you also lost on a last second basket?
I did not mention that, but yes, Michael. 17 years ago, we also lost on a buzzer beater in the quarterfinals. So,
wow, who was it against?
It was against Emotep Charter.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was. Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience to you. It's not funny at all, but yeah, no, it's so at least I commiserate with you and listen, I know you will look back on it but just make sure you look back on this and with pride. Yes, you lost on a last second shot, but what you all accomplished there is absolutely incredible, and you absolutely did the Holy Cross community proud.
Yeah, Michael, I just want to tag on that and say, as Joe knows, I have a tendency, I cover so many of your guys' games at Holy Cross, and all the kids really. I kind of try to build anyway a little bit of a relationship with you players, and seeing that you and I have talked so much over the last 3 years, it's been pretty cool to see how you've developed as a player and an athlete and a leader, but more importantly, as a real character kid within the Calais program there, whether it's his dad coaching or his Al Calais Jr. there. And yeah, it was a great run. You've had a couple of really nice runs in the state playoffs, and you certainly have done that uniform proud, and you and your teammates have a lot to be proud of. So congratulations on being Athlete of the Week. Well deserved. And yes, look back and enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. And just hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
all right,
Michael.
Michael, listen, do me a favor, though. Kind of jump on the bandwagon and let's root for Florida, all right? That way.
All right, that's the only team I have left anyway.
There you go. All right,
go.
so you and I share that. We'll cheer on the Gators all the way.
There we go.
All right, Michael. Take care, bud.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, bye.
All right, that was Michael Hughes, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. Joby, it's got to be tough. I definitely appreciate Michael, coming on and, talking about, the buzzer beater in that game and everything. He once again handled it with class, but you said it. I mean, you had to go, you go in and you talk to these guys, right afterward. So it's, unfortunately it's devastating.
Joe, a couple of things. I thought Coach Al Calais Jr. handled it extremely well initially. First of all, to kind of have a little bit of a conscious about, hey, the media people are waiting for me. I got to hurry up here. Okay.
Right.
So he talked to me, gave me a quick interview. Now the TV people, I should have probably included them too. That way he didn't have to do two. But then he ran into the locker room. He realized maybe I should get in there, and he did. He talked to the players, and I mentioned to him, I said, if Matt Lyons and Michael Hughes, want to talk, just send them out. And the two of them, senior leaders with just such maturity.
Yeah.
You have to understand, the setup is in Parkland, so that the West Catholic players are leaving the facility. And of course, there's jubilation in that group, and they are right outside the Holy Cross locker room when these kids have to come out and give these interviews. And they did so with such class. And that's a credit to Coach Calais and really to not just the players themselves, but how they were raised.
Yeah.
If you read the quotes in the paper, they were excellent, well spoken, and Joe, it chokes them up. How could it not?
Right.
These kids, especially at Holy Cross now, and the dedication that these kids have had. Most of these athletes at Holy Cross are pretty much basketball players. Okay.
Right.
A couple of them other kind of dip their toe in the water with some other sports. But for the most part, these kids are dedicated to this basketball program. And after they lost that state championship game last year, I think the players, now at the time, they thought they were going to be 2A this year and really kind of figured they had a chance to win it all this year. And then had the PIAA move them up a class to 3A. But that didn't stop them. And I thought that they were excellent all season. The nice little rivalry with Riverside splitting those 4 games. And unfortunately, West Catholic knocked out both of them, knocked out Riverside and then knocked off Holy Cross, and West Catholic will probably win the state title convincingly. So,
yeah,
but great job by the Holy Cross players. And Joe, I know we're going to get into it a little bit more about everything else that happened over the weekend, but again, Michael has been great all year. He and Matt Lyons after that game, I can't say enough good things about the way they handled themselves in the postgame.
Absolutely, Joby, and like you brought up, and I was going to talk about it. I think we have talked about it on the podcast before, but you were at my last basketball game, and it just, one minute you're in, Joe Gibbons hits a putback to tie the game, and you're in it, and you're like, oh man, we could do this. And then in the blink of an eye, it's over. It's, and it's interesting because, it's like I mentioned, it's 17 years ago now. And in a little bit of preparation for the podcast, I was just like, try to think about, what happened, like what was and I was just like, well, it was Boca Chica. I still remember the kid's name. It's like that. That's what it is. It really does have an effect on you. And like I said, like even to this day, now the play itself, I've never understood what happened, just because it all happened so fast. I kind of have I have so many questions about like what happened. Like, how was he able to dribble the length of the floor and hit a layup, I thought there were only like 3 seconds left or something. And I'm just
longest 3 seconds of your life.
Right. Exactly, Joby. And it's just like, that is a blur. I don't understand. Maybe I'll talk to, my friends at some point on the team. We could reminisce at a reunion or something until we figure out what happened on that play. But it just, it's interesting because, I think I've mentioned this too. It's just like, when I was at Holy Cross, we had great scouting. We did so much film preparation and everything. And I swear it was just like every time, it was this Boca Chica. It was just like, listen, we need to worry about everyone else. We don't need to worry about Boca Chica. And then all of a sudden, Boca Chica has the game of his life. It's just like, that's unfortunately, it's just how it goes. Exactly. It's how it goes. I hope, I hope Boca Chica is listening to this and being like, yep, I hit that shot. But, the difficult part in the moment, and obviously Michael and, the rest of that team, went through it, and, they'll, it's important to know that what they accomplish cannot be overlooked, even though it did not end in a state title. I mean, that last game, you were there, Joby. I mean, they played a great game. They played, I would say, not being there, it seemed like they really played the better game and then just lost on a buzzer beater. And unfortunately, as I know, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, there's a reason they take score.
That's right.
So
you have to tell me all the time.
Yeah. And Holy Cross played a terrific basketball game. And to its credit, West Catholic, when it had to play at a higher level, when it realized it was going to be in a dogfight with Holy Cross, the Burrs played pretty well too. Okay.
Right.
So the victors go to spoils. Let's put it that way. I will say that last 1.3 seconds, it almost seemed like when the ball left Bird's hand, it was in slow motion.
Yeah.
Because you could watch the trajectory, and I said, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't say it loudly because I was taking video at the time.
Right.
You just got a sense that ball was going in.
Looked good.
Yeah. I've seen very, very few of those. I think I told that to you when I was checking in on Saturday evening. I remember the play in question with your game against Imhotep Charter, a little bit different scenario.
Yeah.
You mentioned, there's dribbles down and that sort of thing. This was a true buzzer beater because I did not believe he had enough time to get a good shot off.
Right.
1.3 seconds, not a lot of time on a game clock.
Right.
So, but when it left his hand, I could just tell it was, you almost want to knock it out of the air.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And time stands still. And then if you watch the video, Joe, and again, I had to go back to the CBS, obviously they have much better production crews involved, but it was so ironic last night that CBS had kind of made it a point to say, hey, yes, enjoy all the thrilling moments of the tournament, but remember that at the other side of this is, heartache and agony and
Yep.
understanding that those kids put in a lot of time too.
Yep.
You know, and when that ball went through, if you watch just the sudden look of disbelief on the Holy Cross players, and you just rips your heart out. And that is something, fortunately for me as an athlete, I didn't have to experience anything like that in a championship setting. Okay.
Right.
So I can certainly sympathize with what I saw and the expressions on the young players' faces and understand that all of the hours, all of the practices, the great efforts that you put forward in a collective group to try to reach the state final and go to Hershey and give yourself a chance to win a gold medal. And really, that's the infamy. Okay. That's the quest. You want to be known for leaving some sort of a imprint on your high school athletic career. And the best way to do that is with a state championship. Okay.
Right.
And Holy Cross certainly had the talent to contend. They proved that all season. And you just feel, just some heartache. But I guess that part of me also says, boy, you feel good for that kid too.
Yeah.
He's only a sophomore and he got to experience every basketball player's dream, Joe. Joe, I heard stories of you being out in the driveway in West Scranton knocking down 3-pointers on Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's funny. It feels cliche, but you end every time you're shooting around wherever you are in the backyard or
you do
whatever.
it, Joe.
Absolutely, I do.
You do the Marv Albert voice.
Yes. But yeah, no, it's exactly true. You dream of having a moment like that. 3, 2, 1, bang, game over.
You had to go 1.3.
Yeah, true. Yeah. There's usually not tenths of a second when it's in your head in the driveway, but yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's rough for Holy Cross, but don't.
Oh, great season, Joe. Great 3 seasons for them, really.
Joby, did you have any, I know you said you didn't, it's difficult because your sports don't quite equate to like a buzzer beater unless you lost on a Hail Mary or, anything like that. But did you have any moment like that?
During my high school career?
Yeah.
I experienced 2 late game finishes. Now, we didn't have state championship playoffs when I was in high school. I know that's saying hard to believe when people think about it. We just had playoffs around here, but I had been on the winning side of both situations. So
good.
Yeah, I never had that. When we lost, we usually lost pretty good.
Yeah.
But funny story, and anybody who remembers back the almost 40 years now when I played. 1986, our team had a lot of players coming back from the year before when we were 7-4, and we had been predicted to be the number 1 team in the Super 16, if you can believe that, WNEP. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Dunmore, the previous year, went 13-0 with the Ruddy brothers. God bless them both, terrific football players. The year before, we had played Dunmore and we lost 21-18. We missed all our extra points. Okay. Dunmore went on and won the Eastern Conference Championship with 13-0. So the next year we open up with Dunmore, right?
Right.
We were winning 6-0 the whole game. Oh my God. And Dunmore, late drive, scores a touchdown. Okay.
Yep.
Go up 7-6. So now we've got to make a rally to try to avoid this number 1 ranked team upset in week 1 of the season. Right. How wrong could they have been, right?
Right.
And I can remember the play like it was yesterday. So I'm on the field. My now brother-in-law, Paul Pigeon, was the quarterback, and somebody brings the play in, one of our teammates, and the play was designed to go to me. Okay, the pass, on the 35-yard line or whatever. And my brother-in-law looks at me right in the eyes and he says, "Joby, don't you drop this pass." And I said, "You just get it to me and we'll go from there." And so we run this play, and it's the previous play was a pass interference, offensive pass or defensive pass interference. Game can't end on a defensive penalty. The clock had expired. We get an untimed down. Okay.
Mhm.
We run the play, and my brother-in-law, Paul Pigeon, drops back, and I run this. We called it like a skinny post. Okay.
Mhm.
And of course, I cut it off too short. So he throws the ball up. I leap up as high as I could get. And Joey, back then I could get a little higher than a piece of paper. And I caught it, and I got hit simultaneous, okay, by Harold Magnotta, linebacker from Dunmore. But he just tried to, kind of the knockout type of hit.
Yeah. And
somehow I was aware enough to put my leg down, and I maintained my balance, and I ran into the end zone to win the game. And everybody bum rushes me off the sideline, and it was a miracle, really.
Yeah.
There's no way it should have happened. And I wish I could dig up that video. If anybody out there listening can ever find the video of that catch,
absolutely,
you would see how it should never have happened. Like, but yeah. So, and I can only imagine the devastation on the Dunmore side, right?
Oh,
but I'm not thinking about that in the moment. But what I will tell you is the reason I know how devastating something like that can be is every year, every preseason, whenever I visited Dunmore football practice, legendary coach, the late Jack Henges, would always bring up that play. One, he was very angry with the pass interference call the play before.
Right.
But again, we're on the 35-yard line. That's still a long play to try to score a game-winning touchdown. But two, he could not believe that I kept my balance. Could not believe it. So that's we're talking, 30 years of football. He must have seen 250, 300 games in between that game and
it's true.
But he remembered that play.
Yeah.
So, I was fortunate again to be on that side. I never lost one weight, so I don't know that part of it. But I've been around enough.
Right.
How devastating they can be.
I was gonna say you've definitely seen enough of them. Yeah. So, but yeah, good that you were never on the wrong end of that.
Yeah, one of the worst ones I ever saw, and then we'll move on, was Bull Forge in the state football final. Failed 2-point conversion attempt. It was just
yeah.
In overtime yet. Oh my goodness gracious.
Exactly. And I mean, when it comes to, I just saw one with Scranton where again, much like the Maryland, there was a questionable 3 steps that the kid from Parkland took.
Oh, Joe, did you happen to see, was it Gene Steratore? Does he do the officials for the basketball tournament too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he comes on and he's getting berated by the ex-players who, again, are all NBA players around him at the desk.
Right.
And he comes on to try to explain, why that was probably a travel.
Yeah.
He gathered, stepped, and then took 2 steps. So that's a travel.
Right.
Well, the NBA players, of course, they travel all the time, so they don't. They were adamant that it wasn't. But I found it interesting what he said. He said, now that we have all this great technology and we're breaking things down in slow motion and frame by frame, he said, but in the moment, you can see how a referee could miss the travel. And I said, well, isn't that something? We are continually forcing this technology into play, and we are deciding games with it.
Right.
But here in this moment, they don't want to decide this game.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And he made it a point to say it's not reviewable. Imagine that.
Imagine that, Joby. Right. Imagine.
But yeah, listen, and I think I mentioned it to you, Joe, when it happened in that Parkland Scranton game, and referees aren't going to call it.
No.
It's not their fault.
Right.
They want the game to be won on the court. They don't want to blow a whistle that's going to put a kid on the free throw line, and that's probably a worse fate for the referee.
Right.
You're caught between that very difficult decision to make: blow the whistle because you saw it travel, or let the kid try to win the game with a miracle shot and experience the thrill of a lifetime.
Exactly.
So, tough spot to be in human nature.
Absolutely, Joby. Absolutely. And Joby, like you said, we should probably talk about our other teams as well.
Mountain View had a dramatic finish too, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Mountain View, kind of similar to Holy Cross.
Addison Kilmer tried to do the pull the Javon Bird with a late 3-pointer.
Exactly. She ends up missing. They lose to Berlin Brothers Valley. Yes, thank you. I was thinking Brothers Valley, and I couldn't think of the first word. But yeah, so they end up losing by 3. Another great performance from Addison Kilmer, who Berlin Brothers Valley was desperately trying to not have shoot the ball ever or touch the ball, but Kilmer ends up scoring 20 points anyway. And Coral Prosser from Berlin Brothers Valley scores 31. So that's, again,
if Berlin Brothers Valley goes on to win the state title, Joe, it's going to be very difficult to not give her Player of the Year in the state. But I will say that Addison Kilmer, who was the Class 1A state Player of the Year last year, certainly did herself and the Mountain View community very proud in showing that because Mountain View moved up a classification this year, she is certainly worthy of all state honors, and she better get a first team selection. But yeah, it's going to be hard pressing to discount the performance of Berlin Brothers Valley's players. That's just tremendous effort by them too.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, Joby, again, just like Holy Cross moving from 2A to 3A, Mountain View has to move from 1A to 2A, and, doesn't miss a beat. They end up in the state semis and end up on the verge of making a state final again. If Addison hits that 3-pointer, goes to overtime, who knows? You can play the who knows game all you want, but it's still an incredible season for Mountain View. I feel like an incredible coaching season as well for Corey Guessford. Getting them back to almost back to exactly where they were last season, but still making it to the state semifinals is great. And again, just barely missing out on a state final. Just another great season for Mountain View. And I believe, Joby, that's 2 state semifinals and a state final for them in the last 3 years. So it's, again, heartbreaking, but extremely impressive for this program.
Especially for a small school community like Mountain View, Joe. Listen, right. 10 state playoff wins in the last 3 years for this program. But, we know how talented and what kind of a great impact Addison Kilmer has on any basketball game that she plays at any level. But, you probably, and she probably couldn't define or describe the raw emotion she probably felt after that game, because the finality of that final game hits a little bit closer to home for her, because that too, Joe, is not only her last game with all of her teammates, many of them she's played with for 3 years now,
right,
but also the last time she'll play as teammates, unless they go on to play together in college. I don't know that yet, but certainly in Mountain View uniforms that she'll play with her sister Riley Kilmer, who had a team as well. So listen, both those sisters have left quite an impression on the Mountain View girls basketball program. That's for sure.
Exactly. And, Joby, you were at the Valley View game as well. Again, Valley View ends up losing by 20 to Devon Prep, but they still had a phenomenal season.
No, incredible season, Joe. But what I found really refreshing was, now, for people who don't know what happened on Friday night, Loyal Sox team bus on the way down to Parkland High School was caught in a traffic jam situation created by a terrible automobile accident on Interstate 80. And so both games, the first game of the doubleheader, which Loyal Sox defeated Imhotep Charter, started an hour and a half later than the scheduled tip time. Okay, so 9 o'clock game, and the Valley View game tipped off. Now, what was refreshing, Joe, was after the game and Valley View lost by 20, the players, there weren't a lot of tears. There were obviously from the seniors. This is a senior group. But they kind of hung around rather than go back to the locker room, because most of the community had come down on the floor, and it was the last game of the doubleheader. There was really no hurry to get out of there. And just kind of, received congratulations and took some photos with with family and friends and classmates. And, they kind of soaked it all in.
Yeah.
And what they were able to accomplish as Valley View, not just this year, but historically for that program. It was the third time that the program had gotten to the semifinals in boys basketball, and the first time since 1997. So that's a long time, Joe. Yeah. And look, when you're in the state playoffs, I know this is a hard thing for people to understand sometimes. You can appreciate it a little bit, Joe, because you and your teammates at Bishop Hannon / Holy Cross sometimes are this team, but sometimes you go in, you just meet a team that's better.
Right.
And I hate using the word better, but listen, that's just the reality of it. Sometimes there's a better team on the other side.
Right.
And this Devon prep team was extremely talented, very physical. Inside, they're well coached. Jason Fisher, University of Scranton player, who was teammates with Al Calais Jr. when they were at the U, and just a real disciplined group. Worked really hard at both ends of the floor, which you would think, this team had a win over Holy Cross first earlier in the season, and that takes nothing away from what was a great season for Valley View, which also won its first district championship since 1997. The great state playoff run of Bayon McLean.
Yeah.
Okay. He was terrific all throughout. The guts and grit and determination shown by this senior group that included Noah Vino, who had a career game in the quarterfinals to help lead Valley View to a comeback victory over Shamokin. You had Aiden Smola, the intense defense of Nikki Koharski. Tyler Skoblik had a couple of huge games in the state playoff run. So it was a really neat group to watch and support and follow and cover. And again, kind of wore their emotions on their sleeves. And look, they understood the circumstances of the situation. It was devastating to lose, but they were proud of what they accomplished. And I thought that was a really great thing to say from that group at Valley View.
Exactly, Joby. That's great to hear. And I'm also glad that you brought up, sometimes, realistically, you do just run into a better team. I mean, it's, you speak of, we talked about the buzzer beater that ended my basketball career, but just to speak to your point, first of all, we weren't supposed to beat Emotep. So the fact that we were in that game, we were well prepared and we played a great game, but to further the point, if we won that game, we would have played Strawberry Mansion. And if we won that game, we would have played Jeanette and a guy named Terrell Pryor, obviously, who you're familiar with, and everybody is actually. So it wasn't, I hate to say, it wasn't realistic that even if we got past Emotep, we weren't going to win a state title. I don't want to come out and say that, but they were better teams than us, physically, athletically. I remember watching that state title game between Strawberry Manson and Jeanette. And at the time I was like, these look like two college teams facing off. It's just like realistically, would we have even been in these games if we had made it past Emotep? No. Well, I hate to say that, but you run into better teams.
You may be selling your team a little short, Joe, but here's the thing. No, you're trying to be a little bit more, be realistic.
Just be realistic about it, yes.
But here's the thing. The way you have to say it that to kind of makes it a little bit more clear is, yeah, you weren't favored to beat Emotep Charter, okay?
Yeah.
And you probably weren't going to be favored in either of the next two games. I'm not to say you couldn't have done it, and I'm not saying that Valley View couldn't have beaten Devon Prep on a different night or a little bit better. But here was a situation where they played an extremely talented team, a team that also had 5 senior starters, okay? So they've got a group of 5 who are on the same quest that Valley View is on, and it would take a terrific, almost flawless effort for Valley View to challenge this team. I mean, that's indicated by the 20-point margin.
Right.
Where I think the game was probably a little bit tighter than the 20-point. I mean, it got, a little silly late, but Devon Prep is going to be probably favored to win the state final.
Exactly.
So Valley View has nothing to be ashamed of. It is going to be interesting, though, in 4A, Joe, because Devon Prep is going to face Berks Catholic in the final.
Yeah.
Berks Catholic is the team that knocked Scranton Prep out of the state playoffs as well.
Right.
I think we're going to get a gauge a little bit on where Berks Catholic falls in the rankings here. Scranton Prep was in that game and had a lead late in the second half, and Berks Catholic had a late push to win that game. Of course, those teams were in the western half of the bracket, and Berks Catholic has now moved on to the final and play Devon Prep. So we'll see. But isn't it interesting, Joe? Holy Cross and Riverside are two teams in 3A.
Yep.
Got knocked out by Devon Prep, or I'm sorry, West Catholic, in the state final. Okay.
Yep.
Old Forge in Class 2A got knocked out by Linville Hill, which is in the state final.
Yep.
Okay. Of course, and now in 4A, Valley View and Scranton Prep, the two finalists knocked our teams out.
Yeah.
So our teams have a lot to be proud of what they were able to accomplish this year. And if, those teams go on to win state titles, it kind of emphasizes just how great a season this was in the Lackawanna League in District 2.
Exactly, Joby. And I think that's the ultimate point we're trying to make throughout this is how well District 2 did. I mean, even to mention some of the Wyoming Valley Conference teams, I mean, Crestwood went up against Archbishop Wood. I mean,
that's a tall task.
It's a very tall task. I think they have a girl going to like Penn State or something. I forget. I apologize. But, obviously Mountain View lost in the semifinals. Scranton Prep lost to Newman Goretti, who's in the final. It ultimately just speaks to, I think I'm a movie guy, Joby. So the theme, if we're making a theme for this podcast, is that, not only in basketball, but up and down every winter sport, everyone should be super proud. And maybe it doesn't seem like it in the moment, but they're all going to look back at it and say, wow, we were in these games, and we made it so far, and we beat some great talent, and we were in it with them. I mean, I look back in pride being a part of a team that, again, you mentioned a name like Terrell Pryor, how great an athlete he was. It's just being in like the same classification, among those amazing teams. It's a great thing to look back on and be like, even though it's, you're just teenagers, but it's like, wow, we were really a part of something special.
John, there's a little bit of a weird finality to it from a media standpoint as well. You go on these journeys with all the teams, right?
Right.
And kind of like some of the athletes themselves, we have to kind of move on to the spring sports season because it's right upon us.
Right.
I actually noticed just in the box score the other day, Connor McNally was playing baseball already.
Yeah.
So that helps a little bit in the processing of it all. You kind of find a different distraction or a different avenue to continue your athletic career. But so we're going to have to do that here as well. And you mentioned earlier in the podcast here, Joe, that spring sports are really going to be dialed up here starting this week. We've had some sprinkling of non-league games and whatnot, and the track's going to heat up this week. Going to start with the crossover meets, and the next week we get right into league action. And I believe the baseball and softball league play starts this week as well. So, we're going to get right back into it and follow the journeys of some really fantastic spring sports athletes as well.
Exactly, Joby. And, believe it or not, Kaylee Kowalski had 3 hits and 2 home runs the other day.
Big shot.
Yeah, I mean, Valley View softball is going to be
a
great team to follow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they have 3 players commit to Division I programs during the off season?
I think it's 4.
Maybe 4. Okay, probably 4.
You know what? 3 in the off season, yes, but I think they have 4 total on the team going Division I.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good program to watch.
Yeah. So that's just a quick, it's going to be an exciting softball season, exciting baseball season. We've got great talent. We've got great talent in track and field. Joe
also, just to put a ribbon on the basketball, I apologize for interrupting you, but there will be this LIAA Senior All-Star Games next week as well.
No, that's right.
So we do get one last chance. Now, are these games competitive? I don't know. But at least we get one last chance to see some of these kids who will move on to bigger and better things in their collegiate careers or whatever career they choose. We get a chance to see them play basketball one more time in these senior all-star games.
And I've got to tell you, Joby, you always, you're always very complimentary of me. I must say, on Saturday, the fact that you were able to turn that game story around as quickly as you did, somehow with quotes, in time for our way too early deadline it was like, geez, Joby, I hate to say it like this, but it was like a miracle. I have no idea like how you did it. And I knew you were going to be able to. Like, I didn't have a doubt, it's just like, and you shouldn't have that on you, but like, I knew you were going to do it. And like, you did a phenomenal job with that, Joby.
Joe, if you, I do appreciate you saying that, but there were some hurdles to clear. Thankfully, I was a hurdler in high school. I didn't have any way to charge my laptop over the weekend.
That too.
Because my brain is not working properly, and I forgot my charger at home. So, believe it or not, I had my alarm set on my phone, Joe, because you and I had discussed earlier how quick I had to turn this around. And when it went off, I had just finished the interviews with Matt Lyons and Michael Hughes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I had Joe, I kid you not, I had to kind of, with a little bit pep in my step, climb the bleachers at Parkland High School, which is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then not afraid to say that I had a slight jog to the car.
Yeah.
Because the alarm had already gone off.
Right.
Can I do this? And then that competitive spirit kind of gets going in me. I want to prove even myself wrong. So yeah, listen, I was glad I could do it because I thought that game deserved to make the paper.
Certainly.
On Sunday, and I wish it was under better circumstances. But Joe, hey, if you ask me to try to do something, I at least give it my best.
Absolutely, you do. Absolutely. So, and you've got a bunch of previews coming up, like you said. Spring sports are coming, and your previews are running, man. I mean, never stop. Track and field, volleyball, gonna be in Tuesday's paper. I mean,
Joe, I have a huge tennis match later on this week, Abington Heights, Holy Cross.
Oh, there you go.
I've got a boys volleyball match, West Scranton and Scranton this week, so I'm looking forward to spring sports starting. But again, great winter sports season.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to once again thank Michael Hughes for joining us for an interview. And once again, my friend, thank you for joining me here, taking time out of your schedule. So I always appreciate it. Yeah, I had a fun, always nice to reminisce about.